So there seems to be this trend lately, which, in my opinion, seems very, very suspect. Like, it seems like it's probably very astroturfed, which is essentially all these social media accounts on TikTok and Instagram and whatever from Europe of people who are visiting the United States for the World Cup and commenting on how awesome everything is. Like, all of this, it just feels very artificial. It feels very astroturfed, as if people within the Republican Party, Twitter itself, but also people within the Trump administration or affiliated with it are just artificially promoting the hell out of this as propaganda. Like, oh, look at how superior the United States is to Europe. And they especially seem to be focusing on middle America in particular, which is, of course, like, obviously they're promoting the places that are heavily Republican, but it's not just about that. Like, it seems to be about a certain aesthetic and ideological preference. Like, the idea of basically hating, like, the idea of promoting places that are extremely, like, unwalkable, sprawled, car centric, and where everything is basically chains. And that's another thing, like, really promoting the hell out of certain chain stores and restaurants in particular, like Buc-ee's. Like, that seems to be the big thing now, is like obsessing over Buc-ee's. And I've actually looked it up, and Buc-ee's is a company that contributes financially to the Republican Party. So there's definitely something going on here. Like, this whole Buc-ee's meme that keeps going around, everything about it feels astroturfed also. Like, all of this does. And it's very much like, oh, red state America, rah rah. Middle America, rah rah. Now, I guess there's some truth to the idea that there's this whole, like, grass is greener on the other side thing, where if people aren't familiar, like, aren't used to a certain way of life or a certain thing, they might find it pretty cool or obsess over it. Although it's not always the case. Like, I've been to places that are different from home and I didn't like them. Like, for instance, I went to Nicaragua, which is very third world. I didn't particularly like it there, aside from some of the natural scenery. But in the cities themselves, absolutely not. Like, I did not like Managua at all. But yeah, that would be an example. Now, there are certain things I can kind of understand. Like, I do understand, for instance, like, in European grocery stores, the selection can be kind of limited. So I understand why some people might think it's pretty cool, like, the sheer options that they have in American grocery stores. Like, for instance, when I'm in Europe, sometimes I find it difficult to find cereal that is both high fiber and does not have nuts in it, because I have a nut allergy. What is nut allergy? Nut allergy. What are you talking about? But yeah, no, I have that. But what I don't get about this is, like, okay, the idea that this is only in middle America. It's like, in blue state America, you can also find a pretty wide selection at grocery stores. Like, I would imagine even in, like, dense cities, like, even in, like, I don't know about New York City bodegas, but I feel like even in, like, say, like, Boston or Philadelphia or Chicago or whatever, maybe New York City bodegas, I don't know. But even there, I'd imagine the selection with a lot of things would be better than in Europe. And it's not necessarily even about the size of the grocery store. It's just about the fact, like, because Europe does, I've been in some pretty big grocery stores in Europe. It's more about the fact that in Europe, it's just the selection of certain specific items kind of sucks. I'm not saying it for everything. Like, I would agree that their food is healthier on average. They don't shove as much unhealthy crap in your face. But the issue is, if you are trying to eat healthy, there might actually be more selection in North America if you're willing to look past all the crap, if you're not going to be, like, suckered in by all the crap that they bombard you with. Whereas in Europe, it's like some of the selection just sucks. Like, I mean, like, with cereal, it's like, okay, you have all this, like, shitty, unhealthy slop cereal, largely imported from the United States, but yet you don't have, like, anything that's, like, high fiber that doesn't have nuts in it. Like, what is up with that? So it's like, yeah, I get that particular criticism of Europe, and that maybe Europeans would be enamored with that in particular. But, like, when looking at middle America as a whole, do I think it's some land of milk and honey? Honestly, no. And I have a lot of experience with it, like with traveling through Middle America and also the adjacent parts of Canada, Middle Canada. I mean, I've lived in a place that I would definitely call Middle Canada, in a smaller town, and yeah, I mean, honestly, I'm not a big fan of the region. Like, I'm really not. Like, I would define, as I've talked about in the previous video, the boring belt. Um, I define it as basically like the Great Plains and the Midwest, give or take. But you could debate the exact boundaries. It's just definitely Great Plains and Midwest. So in both Canada and the US, basically those regions. Now there might be some debate over, like, I don't consider the mountain states Middle America. I'd say if it's a mountain, like the mountains have a very different vibe. Like it's way more touristy. It's way more like one common feature of Middle America is just that it's boring and that they take pride in how boring it is. Like I remember Tourism Nebraska had billboards in Colorado saying Nebraska, mountains would just spoil the view. And they just showed a picture of like a flat prairie. And it's like, mountains would spoil the view. It's like looking at a woman and saying, well, big boobs would spoil her, or, big round ass would spoil her. It's like, you're really going to say that? I don't know. Like, I mean, I get the argument that like living around mountains can be a pain in the ass because of the unpredictable weather patterns. But it's like, okay, if we're talking about beauty and views, then it's like, give me a fucking break. If you think a totally flat plain is more beautiful than like mountains, I don't even know what to say. Like, it's like the people who prefer brutalist architecture or who think like suburb slop is more beautiful than like Rome or Prague, which is kind of the mentality here also with this whole thing. Yeah, no, I don't know what to say to that. But yeah, I mean, there's some debate. Okay, I would not consider the mountain regions to be Middle America or Middle Canada. Um, One area that I'd say is debatable is the inland South. Like some areas like Tennessee, Kentucky, even West Virginia, um, like probably the more inland parts of like Mississippi, Alabama, etc. Like that whole region, the I guess you'd call it the inland South. So not the coastal South, like not on the Atlantic Ocean and not right on the Gulf Coast either. Would that be Middle America? I don't know. That's a bit more debatable, I think, because I've heard some people refer to it in that context, some don't. I would say in a Canadian context, Middle Canada would be basically Eastern Alberta, so like away from the mountains, Eastern Alberta, Saskatchewan, Manitoba, I'd say probably Northern Ontario, and then probably some of the extreme like southwestern Ontario. I would say like anything west of fake London. So like I would say those parts of Ontario would qualify as Middle Canada. I don't think Quebec by definition can't be Middle Canada because the whole middle thing is very Anglo coded. Well, Anglo with often with German or Scandinavian DNA, but yeah, English speaking. But yeah, I've been through a lot of the Middle American states or two. I've been to like, okay, of the states that are considered Middle American, I've been to like Ohio, Michigan, Indiana, Illinois, Wisconsin, Kentucky, if that counts. Iowa, Nebraska. Yeah, I guess I've been to those ones that are considered. Did I say Wisconsin? Yeah, I guess that is that Middle America. I don't know, but yeah, basically it's like the two images that define Middle America in my mind are basically the cover of the Marshall Mathers LP with Eminem sitting on the front porch of his birth house. And then that famous picture of Breezewood, Pennsylvania, which is, I guess, technically not Middle America, but like very representative of it. Like as I've said many times before, when the movie Man of Steel came out in 2013, the Superman movie, people complained about all the product placement in the Smallville scene, the fight scene set on Main Street, which, by the way, is one of the best fight scenes in any superhero movie ever. Very well done scene. But yeah, people were complaining about that scene because it's like, oh, there's so much product placement with the ads and the building the storefronts with all these like mega chain corporations and stuff, and the vehicles like the trucks with logos, the everything with corporate logos. It's like, that's realistic. That's literally how middle America is. The product placement actually makes it more realistic in that case. Like it makes it more accurate. So yeah, like that is basically middle America and middle Canada. Like when I talk about middle America, most of what I say is also generalizable to middle Canada also. Um, but some of it more so to middle America, I guess. When I've been there are certain things I've observed, like certain common traits, like things that would differentiate this region from where I live, because I live in the Toronto area. I don't live in middle Canada. Um, I'm a filthy Laurentian elite, even though I live nowhere near the fucking Laurentian Mountains. It's such a stupid term. But yeah, middle America, one thing I would say definitely wide stroads. Like there's a lot of massive arterial roads and way bigger than the ones here. Like what I notice in these parts of I guess I notice this all over like even in suburbs in blue states, I notice this, but like arterial roads that are like 4 or 5 lanes in each direction, um, just ridiculously wide, often with a big median in the middle, like a boulevard, but like these ridiculously wide stroads. Also really high speed limits. Like a lot of these arterial roads, but also the freeways, have like way higher speed limits than what I would be accustomed to here in Ontario for like equivalent roads. That's actually been a debate here recently, and I'm on the side of no, don't increase the speed limits. Like there's a reason why our per capita car accident death rate in Ontario is so comparatively low compared to most of North America. And if we start raising speed limits across the board, we're gonna fuck that up. But yeah, wide stroads. That's a common trait of middle America that I've noticed a lot. Um, really large arterial roads, huge intersections, often where you get like multiple arterial roads like this intersecting one another. And often no sidewalks. That's another thing. Not only on these arterial roads, but on other roads too. Like there's just an absence of sidewalks. Like at least here in the Toronto area and nearby parts of southern Ontario, even the suburban sprawl, it usually has sidewalks. The exception is some of the rich neighborhoods. Like a lot of the rich neighborhoods don't have sidewalks. Like I use the term no sidewalks kind of like blue bloods to indicate that you're in like a wealthy neighborhood. It's accurate around here, but in middle America, there's often no sidewalks like anywhere. Like regular residential, like middle class, lower middle class suburban residential neighborhoods often won't have sidewalks even there. Main streets won't have like a lot of there just won't be that many sidewalks. And when there is, it's often just on one side of the road and not both sides. So like not very pedestrian friendly. Frankly, not much in the way of traffic calming measures. It seems like the roads are designed to be driven on very quickly without much thought for safety. And that's also why there's all these stroads, which are probably the most unsafe type of road other than like 2-lane rural highways. But the thing is, 2-lane rural highways are kind of unavoidable. Like it's kind of the only option in isolated rural areas. Whereas like these massive stroads, like these huge arterial roads that have businesses on them, like lined with like fast food restaurants and muffler shops and furniture stores and shit like that. It's like, it's just poor urban planning. And at least in recent years, at least here in this part of Ontario, it seems like the planners have shied away from making more stroads like that now. Like where you see stroads around here, they're often relics of like the 60s, 50s, 60s, 70s, and 80s. In Middle America, I don't know. Are they still creating new stroads, new commercial strips like this? I don't know, but I see them everywhere there. Um, and they're a lot bigger, as I said. Like the stroads are wider, the speed limits are higher. They're it's really bad. And again, like this is another reason why a lot of these states and provinces have high car accident per capita fatality rates. It's design. Like design plays a huge part in it. Um Another thing is that I've noticed way more in the United States, especially middle America, but actually this one will be all over the US. Basically everywhere except like dense big cities is like really tall signs for franchise restaurants. Like for McDonald's or Bob Evans or whatever. You see these like really tall signs that are visible like miles away, and they're intended, I guess, for people who are on the freeway, like the interstate, and basically advertising the restaurant. And it's just they're so ugly. And it's just you don't see that as much in Canada. Actually, I'm pretty sure I saw some of it in Middle Canada, like Manitoba and Saskatchewan, but you don't see that many of them in Southern Ontario, for instance. It's not that common here. Whereas I go into like Michigan, for instance, and it's everywhere. And this is actually something again is ubiquitous. I would say across the United States. This would not just be a red state thing, or a Middle America thing. And another thing I've noticed in the U.S. again, probably more so Middle America, but probably to some extent everywhere, at least outside the dense core cities, is billboards. There's a lot of billboards, and they're so ugly. Just seeing billboards all over the place, it's such visual pollution. It's like, yes, we have billboards in Canada, but I feel like we just don't have as many, nowhere near as many. There's a few specific sections where there's a ton of them, but by and large, I would say there's a lot fewer billboards here. That's just one thing I've noticed. And it's just such visual pollution. It's so ugly. Like billboards and these tall ass signs for the megacorps, the McDonald's and the Cracker Barrel and what have you. I don't know. All this shit. It's just seeing all this stuff. Like, I don't like it. It's just ugly. I mean, it doesn't make me feel warm and fuzzy. Like, there's definitely places in the US that are very beautiful. But it's not because of this shit. It's not because of this crap, that's for sure. The places that are beautiful in the US tend to be like the wilderness areas, which are further west, like the really beautiful ones. Even further east, there's some. But I'd say Middle America, a lot of it's lacking in that regard. A lot of it's just like flat, open plains. And it's like, even the beautiful parts are like, they're not as stunning as like other areas. And it's like, I don't know. I mean, personally, if I was recommending where to go in North America for foreign tourists, frankly, like this part of the continent would be like the middle America, middle Canada would be like the last place I would recommend. Other than like literal like Arctic regions that are like inaccessible. Like other than that, like extremely isolated regions that are just very hard to get to. Other than that, I would say middle America, middle Canada would be the region I would recommend the last. But there's a few exceptions and I'll get to those. But yeah, anyway, moving on, like the traits of Middle America. One thing I've noticed in a lot of the suburbs there is they will have like forests and stuff and grassland and open like natural areas like grassland, forests, whatever, but there's no trails. And it's like here in Southern Ontario, we at least have a lot of trails in most of the suburbs and in the cities too, like parks and trails and stuff. But in the United States, especially Middle America, I find there's a lot of suburbs that are very sprawled out and they have like these forests, like ravines and stuff that wind their way between the houses, between the subdivisions, but yet there's no trails, there's no parks, there's no, I don't think there's even social trails, which is like trails that are like unofficial or whatever. Like, I don't know, like I look on Google Maps and it really looks as if there's like hardly any trails in these areas, even though there's a lot of forests and stuff. So is this like a taxes issue? Like because their taxes are lower, they can't afford to have trails? Or is there some other reason for this? I don't know. Because personally, like I think at least here in Southern Ontario, the hiking trails, like the walking trails, are one of the perhaps the number one most redeeming feature of the suburbs. But it's like if you don't even have that, then what's the fucking point? Like, what is the point of living in this sprawl? Of course, then again, like we have a lot of great trails in many of our inner cities too. Like in Toronto, there's actually a lot of great hiking trails, like in the city itself, not just in the suburbs, like parks and trails and stuff like that. So, I mean, like, another issue in middle America is just lack of rail transit. Like, if you're trying to get around using public transit, there's some Amtrak lines that kind of go across the country, but there's often not that much in terms of like rail transit to any city that's not like super big, or also rail transit within the cities. Like, again, I'm not talking about Chicago. Like, I'm not talking about Chicago. Chicago's a major exception to all this. I'm going to get to that later. But in many parts of this region, yeah, there's just not much in the way of rail transit. And insofar as public transit exists, it's just buses. And frankly, buses suck. Like, buses suck for everything except like short distance trips. They suck for a number of reasons, but like the fact they don't have bathrooms, the fact that like for long distance trips, like intercity buses, they often don't have bathrooms. The fact that they can get overcrowded easily, the fact that they don't come that regularly often, and they often take these horrible routes that just go like squiggle like a snake all over the place, like just these very indirect routes. But yeah, like buses suck. For anything except like very short trips. Like the buses are good for trips that are a bit too long for walking, but not that long. Like distances that might take like 30 minutes if you were going to walk them. Like that would be the ideal type of distance for bus routes. And I see them more as like complementary to rail transit. Like in an ideal system, the rail transit is the backbone, and these buses are like complementary for short distance trips that maybe don't have quite enough traffic to merit a rail line of any kind, like a tram or a subway or a commuter train or whatever. So yeah, lack of rail transit, that's another, and lack of walkability in general, frankly. Lack of walkable neighborhoods. Everything feels car dependent. Even when there are apartment buildings, it still feels car dependent. And often there are none. Like often you have cities that are almost nothing but like detached housing. Although maybe that's changing in recent years, because even in cities like Des Moines, like I think some condos are starting to be built, but it used to be not so long ago that like there'd be almost no apartment buildings, like condos or apartments at all in these cities, aside from like a few shitty low rises here and there. But yeah, it's in some of these cities it feels like it's almost entirely detached homes, although that could be changing a little bit. And another thing I noticed a lot of in middle America is abandonment and ghettos. Like there's a lot of neighborhoods, like the poorer neighborhoods, the blacker neighborhoods, where there's just a lot of abandonment and stuff. Like in Detroit, obviously, but even in smaller cities as well. Like there's a lot of that, like just like abandoned areas that are very decrepit, falling apart. Like literally, that's why the term Rust Belt exists, which is for a significant portion of Middle America, the more eastern portion of Middle America. So yeah, there's a lot of that, and also just lack of like things to do, like tourist attractions, natural beauty, architectural beauty, like historic walkable neighborhoods. I mean, I've kind of covered this a lot already in my boring belt video, but what I really want to also say is like, it just feels so astroturfed. Like people praising this area like it's some sort of land of milk and honey. Like to be honest, if it was real, like I feel like what Europeans would be gushing at more would be like some of the national parks and stuff like that. Like if they went out west. Some of that I could definitely see them gushing over. I mean, I could see them gushing over like the level of excess. Like if you go to some of the rich neighborhoods across the United States, like just how big the McMansions are. Although again, like it's impressive in a way, but I wouldn't call it like beautiful. Like I think a lot of them are very tacky, and it's like I don't know. To me, it's like I start wondering, like, is it good that we're allowing so many people to hoard so much money while the commons are frequently neglected? Like that would be my reaction to that. But I mean, but what they seem to be impressed by is just like these like the most mundane things like truck stops and like I mean fast food restaurants, these stroads full of chain stores and stuff like that. Like it never seems to be independent restaurants or independent businesses. It's always like praising these like mega chains everywhere. It's like the tackier the better, basically. Like that seems to be the emphasis of these videos. And I don't know. It's like I could even get being like if they're super impressed by some of the cities, like say like New York City or Boston or Washington D.C., but that again, that's not it. Like they're not going to these places. They're going to middle America. They're going to like the strodiest of stroads, the most suburban of suburbs, the McMansions to end all McMansions. Like that's basically where they're going and where these people are allegedly gushing over in these what I think are very astroturfed videos and posts that are just going viral everywhere, especially on Twitter, because I think Twitter is just constantly promoting pro-American, anti-European content, and they do this aggressively. Like all I get on my feed in Twitter is this, and maybe it's because I'm engaging in these discussions, but I think it's also just that they're promoting the hell out of it. Same with like the whole air conditioning debate. Again, like I think Europeans are wrong on this issue, but nonetheless, the fact that they're putting so much emphasis on it, meanwhile defending all the areas where the United States frankly falls short, like life expectancy, homicide rate, obesity rate, car accident fatality rate, like just ignoring all these completely but obsessing over air conditioning and heat deaths in Europe. Like it seems like to me like that on Twitter in particular, there seems to be a huge emphasis on promoting pro-American and anti-European, also anti-Canadian content. I don't know if it's anti-Australia, New Zealand. They probably a little bit of that. Actually, a little bit of that. Yeah, there was that World Cup thing with the Aussies booing the U.S. anthem or whatever. But yeah, as I said, I will admit there are exceptions to the rule, though. Chicago, as I mentioned, is a major exception. It's kind of an oasis in the desert of walkability in and transit and all that in Middle America. Now, yeah, obviously Chicago has its problems. It has a high crime rate, and even the transit, it's probably not as good as it could be for a city of its size and its density. But still, at least it has rail transit. And not just a tiny amount of it, but it has an actual like metro system, subway system, the L trains. So, and Chicago has great museums too. It has some beautiful Art Deco skyscrapers. There's a lot of great like independent restaurants there too. It has its own styles of food. It has a lot of its own unique foods like Chicago deep dish pizza, Chicago tavern style pizza, Chicago beef sandwiches, Chicago style hot dogs. Like they definitely have a lot of their own unique food. Yeah, I mean, Chicago is not middle America really. It's like geographically yes, but culturally no. And most of them would agree. Like most of the people constantly praising what they mean by middle America is really Republican America. Like it really is like I almost feel like they'll define places as like real America based on whether or not they vote Republican. So like Miami is now real America because they, for the first time, voted Republican. But yet, let's say like rural Vermont would not be real America because they vote Democrat. I don't know. Like, is it more to do with like rural and suburban versus urban, or is it more to do with like Republican versus Democrat? I don't know. Like which factor is more important in determining whether something is real America. But like at the same time, there's real America and then there's middle America. And Obviously, the two like overlap, but not 100%. Like they mostly overlap the Venn diagram between quote unquote real America and quote unquote middle America. They're mostly overlaps, but not 100% because you get a few regions that they'd probably call real America that are not middle America, and a few regions that are at least geographically middle America that are not quote unquote real America. Like I'd say Chicago would be that. New Orleans would be that. I don't know if that would be geographically middle America because it is on the Gulf Coast. But yeah, New Orleans would definitely be an exception. I don't know if Austin, I don't know how they feel about Austin these days. They seem to worship Austin a lot on Twitter. So I guess it counts, even though it votes Democrat pretty solidly. But yeah, Chicago would be somewhere that is geographically middle America, but not culturally, but not real America. Um, Whereas, say, for instance, like a lot of places in Florida, like Florida is not geographically middle America at all. It's like literally a peninsula right into the ocean. But they might call it real America, at least most of Florida, even though it's not middle America. So I mean there's exceptions in both ways, but I'm saying that it mostly overlaps. But yeah, in terms of exceptions in middle America, like I would say like Chicago, obviously, New Orleans, if New Orleans even counts. Um Exceptions in terms of like actually having stuff to see and do, like architecture and stuff like that. And also exceptions in terms of like, oh, that's not real America because they're demon craps. Even Detroit's a bit of an exception. Like, obviously, Detroit has a lot of abandonment and has a lot of the middle America problems, but it does have some cool stuff to see, like some of the Art Deco skyscrapers, and it has some good museums also. So at least it's not, and it has some good food of its own. So I mean, it's not just like boring middle America, even though it has many of the problems of middle America. I would say the Black Hills of South Dakota, if that even, like, I mean, I guess that's technically a Great Plains state, but it feels more like the mountain states in that region. It's even on mountain time. Like you have Mount Rushmore, Devil's Tower, that's technically Wyoming. There's Badlands National Park. There's, I forget the name. There's a state park. Is it Custer State Park? I forget, but it has some cool sites there as well. So yeah, that whole region, I don't know. Is it technically Middle America? Maybe, but it's definitely not boring. It definitely has quite a lot of natural beauty in that particular region, like western South Dakota and then eastern Wyoming. So it's like it's east of the Rocky Mountains, but it's still kind of like has rock formations and mountains, albeit smaller ones compared to the Rockies. But yeah, it's definitely still a beautiful region. So not boring. I'll say it. That region's not boring. But then you go to like eastern South Dakota and it's like the most boring crap imaginable. So yeah, that might be an exception there. Mammoth Cave, Kentucky, if that counts as middle America, that would be an exception because that's not boring. Um, Mammoth Cave is quite beautiful. I've been in there, like taking the tour. It's quite gorgeous, quite spectacular. So yeah, I guess also the small town of Galena, Illinois. It's kind of pretty. I've never been there, but yeah, it's pretty and historic. Same with Eureka Springs, Arkansas. So it's like yeah, there's exceptions, but again, they're few and far between. Like when you look at it on a map, these exceptions are very few and far between. And I mean, yes, there's some good museums in some of the other Middle America cities too, like say Cleveland, Kansas City. Like they do have some good art museums. There's that one in Arkansas that they recently built. I think it was actually like the Walmart Corporation, one of the heirs to Walmart, built a really big art museum in northwestern Arkansas. So it's like, sure, there's some good individual museums and stuff, but it's like at the end of the day, as a tourist, are these the places you'd want to go to? Probably not. It would be probably better to just go to New York or Philadelphia or Washington, D.C., Boston, Chicago, yes. Because those are like the cities that have just like a lot of stuff to see and do. Um, so like, yes, there's some exceptions, but by and large, a lot of Middle America and Middle Canada, even fewer exceptions. There's literally like fuck all to do in like Saskatchewan or Manitoba. I mean, I guess Kakabeka Falls near Thunder Bay is pretty beautiful, but yeah, Manitoba and Saskatchewan, there's really like fuck all there. It's really boring. And a lot of the attractions in Middle America are kind of like tacky slop stuff, like the Mall of America in Minneapolis or like Branson, Missouri is basically like Christian slop. Like, I'm sorry if that's blasphemous to say, but it is. It's Christian slop. It's basically like they said in The Simpsons, Las Vegas if it was designed by Ned Flanders. Wisconsin Dells. Okay, the Dells themselves are beautiful, but there's so much tacky stuff there. Like, ugh. Yeah, I really hate like when they do that. When they Niagara Falls is probably the worst example, and that's not Middle America or Middle Canada. That's in the elite Windsor to Quebec, London to Quebec City, Laurentian, so-called Laurentian elite like corridor. Yeah, the St. Lawrence Seaway. So yeah, it's a bit of a shame that we allowed Niagara Falls to be so filled with tacky shit near such a beautiful natural landmark. But yeah, my point is like, yeah, a lot of the attractions in Middle America are like tacky, like and the stuff like in Iowa, like world's biggest truck stop. Like I remember driving through Iowa, seeing that. Oh my gosh. And it's just like, when I look at Buc-ee's, it feels like a place that's designed for like adults that are basically overgrown children. Like it feels like it's just excites, it gives the same dopamine rush as when you're a child and when you're so excited by like really commercial stuff, like stuff like malls and stuff like that, stuff that's very commercialized. Like when I was a kid, of course I was excited by that stuff. But as I get older, I go to these places and everything about it just feels so fake and tacky and phony, and it feels so inauthentic, like inorganic. It just, everything about it feels so commercialized. So like malls, stroads, commercial strips, big box stores, all this stuff. Like I don't know. Like I get it that to some extent, yes, these places are necessary to the functioning of daily life, but do they have to be so sprawled? Like, do they have to make the least efficient use of land possible? And that basically feels like what Buc-ee's does. Like, I've seen the pictures of it, and they have like these massive gas stations that just go on and on, like the gas pumps in a row, in one long row. And it's like, it feels like the most inefficient use of land possible. It feels like they could have used literally any other physical arrangement possible of these gas pumps to make them take up less space. And like, I don't know, it really does feel like it's designed for like adults with like this like overgrown kid mentality. Like, oh, it's this huge truck stop with all this stuff. It's so shiny and flashy. Hoorah. Like, I don't know. Like it's trying to be like the Disneyland of gas stations, the Las Vegas of gas stations. And people will criticize me and be like, oh, you don't have kids, so of course you don't like things that are for kids. But it's like, a lot of this doesn't seem like it's for kids. A lot of it seems like it's for adults with like this like overgrown childish mentality, where it's like they never really developed an appreciation for like, frankly, high culture. Like they never developed an appreciation for traditional architecture or art, like traditional art, or like even like natural beauty, scenery. It's like they just want flashy, tacky, commercialized stuff. And it's like even like Disney World feels like it's tacky, but at the same time it is like there's some beauty to it, and it feels like maybe like a stepping stone to like appreciating actual beauty. It's like, oh, you see the Disney architecture, and then later as you get older you start appreciating the actual architecture that it's based on. Like at least I could see Disney being a Disney World, Disney or Universal theme parks being like, or Busch Gardens, Williamsburg or whatever, being like a stepping stone in that regard. I think it kind of was for me in a way. But like stuff like Buc-ee's, it just feels like a dead end. It feels like it's for the people who obsess over like Blockbuster Video, who nostalgize it. Like this obsession with like flashy mega chain stuff. It's like, I don't know. It's the older I get, like the more experience I get in life, the more this entire aesthetic just turns me off. The more, and they're like, well, it appeals to kids. It's like, okay, but you got to get over it. You got to get over it. Like there's a saying like, when I stopped being a child, I put away childish things or something like that. And it's like, I don't know. I feel like there's too many adults there that have this overgrown child mentality. And it's like, we can have some stuff for kids, but do we have to revolve all of society around the preferences of children? Do we have to? Does everything have to be like the Bucky's Beaver and Mickey Mouse and what have you? Like, I don't know. Like, yeah, I did like this kind of stuff when I was a kid. It's true, I did. But when I got to a certain age, I guess I stopped liking it. And there's probably like this whole period where I concurrently liked like flashy slot, but I also like traditional architecture also. So it was like, I guess there was this period of my adolescence where I kind of just was uncritically embracing anything that gave me kind of like a dopamine rush. Um, for better or worse. I don't know. But yeah, my point is like I don't know. I guess I could sort of see how this kind of thing, like whether it's Bucky's or Las Vegas or like Clifton Hill at Niagara Falls or McMansions or whatever, could give you like this like dopamine rush if you're just not used to seeing stuff like this. But for someone like me who's grown up around a lot of stuff like this, it's like it's not that great. And honestly, it gets old, and I wouldn't miss it if it was gone. Let me put it that way. I feel like it's what they're doing is they're trying to turn Europe into Middle America. Like I think that's really what they're doing with this propaganda push, is trying to get Europeans to hate Europe, to hate traditional architecture, to hate walkable communities, to just want to replace it all with Bucky's and Strode's and like chain everything, like mega chain everything, and for essentially the Texasization of Europe and frankly of the planet. Like fear of a Texan planet. That's basically where we're at this point. Fear of a middle American planet. And they're really pushing this right now. Like the so-called conservative media. Like Twitter in particular, but probably like Fox News and the entire conservative media sphere. And it's like, I don't know. Is this the best we can do? And frankly, when people have called me anti-white for saying that I'm not a fan of this type of culture, it's like, okay, this is not, there's probably like a billion white people on earth. Middle America, middle Canada is just one part of it. And to say that that is synonymous with whiteness, like that is the sum total of whiteness, and that all other white cultures aren't true whiteness, and this is the only true whiteness, it's like, no, I'm sorry. That is not true. That is not how I define whiteness. That is not how I see whiteness. And that is not how I've experienced whiteness. I am old enough that I've experienced a lot of these other types of places when they were still majority white. And in some cases, maybe still are. But yeah, it's sad. Like a lot of the walkable cities, a lot of the historic cities, and even some of the historic smaller towns are becoming less white. And it feels like middle America, maybe in some parts at least, is more of a holdout. Like, yeah, some of these places are still very white, like Iowa, Nebraska, and what have you. Not all of them are, but a lot of them are. And maybe whiteness is increasingly becoming synonymous with this sort of thing. And it's like, if that's the case, then it's like, don't make me choose, you know? But no, you know, I don't have to choose because I know that there is a white identity that predates this sort of thing. And I'm not letting go of it. I'm not being forced. Like, if you want to force me to choose between you have to embrace the slop and be white, or you can love traditional architecture, historic, civil, like Western civilization, but you have to embrace the browning. No, I refuse to make that choice. I don't embrace either of those two options. Reject the false dichotomy, embrace the third position. That's what I would say to that. Kind of like that scene in the Wanderer's Choice, the episode by Murdoch, where he puts the two statues, the elephant and the donkey, together. That's my feelings about that. No, I reject this binary. I refuse to make a choice. There is a third option. There is a third position. We don't have to choose between being white and embracing slop culture or embracing high culture but getting browned and blacked. I refuse to admit, I refuse to concede that these are the only two options. And yeah, if the right wing wants to worship the Buc-ee's beaver as their golden calf, if they want to make pilgrimages around Buc-ee's, driving in circles and praying to the Buc-ee's beaver, rubbing their hand on the Buc-ee's beaver, maybe they could have, like, I don't know, a stoning of the trolley car or something like that. Like stoning of the train car to commemorate their hatred of walkable cities. Like, if they want to do that, they have their Hajj to Buc-ee's, they can do that. But I'm not doing that. And I don't know, I've never been to a Buc-ee's. Maybe their brisket sandwiches are actually legitimately good and not just like fast food slop. But you know what? I'd rather support a local brisket restaurant at the end of the day. I've had plenty of great brisket sandwiches at local restaurants, and I will continue to do so. Funny thing is, I've probably driven past Buc-ee's without even knowing what they are because it wasn't as big a deal back then. But yeah, I don't know. I'm not liking this trend. It's so astroturfed. It is so, it's meant to be divisive. It's meant to make Europeans hate themselves, Americans hate Europeans, whatever. And even middle America can be better. There's no reason it can't. There's no reason there can't be more beautiful architecture in middle American cities or more transit or whatever. Sure, absolutely. And I mean, there has been in the past. A lot of it got destroyed in the 50s, 60s, and 70s, but there has been in the past. Like, St. Louis used to be a much more beautiful city. Same with Detroit and Cleveland and Kansas City and so many of the others. I mean, even Chicago still has plenty of beautiful architecture today, but it still had a lot more back then. So yeah, I mean, absolutely. There's no reason it can't be like that again, but we have to believe in it. We have to believe in something better than just absolute lowest common denominator slop. And like, populism, frankly, I'm not big on populism anymore. If this is what populism is, then fuck populism. So yeah, I guess those are my feelings about that. And I just want to say, if you're from this region, I don't hate you for being from this region, okay? Like, frankly, where I'm from might be the elite part of Canada, but it's not so far from this region in and of itself, you know? We aren't that far from it. We aren't that far removed from it. And it's not even about the region. It's about the mentality. It's about this ideology. And you could be from this region and not believe in this ideology. Just like you could be from fucking Prague or Rome and worship slop. Even if that's not what you're surrounded by in your daily life, you could still believe in it. And I do know people like that. I do know people who were fortunate enough to be born and raised in some of the most beautiful parts of Europe and yet still worship slop culture. I have known people like that. So, and yes, the reverse is true as well. There's people who are from middle America who don't worship slop culture. Like, some of my fans, some of my followers here on YouTube, I know fit into that category. People who are from this general region and very much oppose slop culture. These people do exist. So it's like, again, you're not defined necessarily by where you're from, for better or worse. You can choose to embrace a different mentality. And I mean, I did too, to an extent. Like, traveling to Europe changed my views of a lot of things. Granted, where I'm from, there is some beautiful architecture, like in downtown Toronto. But not so much downtown, but like inner city Toronto and the areas surrounding downtown.